Hello out there. We're on the air. Welcome back to the 88 Sats radio channel. Welcome to the daily Bitcoin journey. This one's a recorded version though, and it's going to be a follow-up video of one that I did about 6 months ago now, maybe more, but it's a follow-up version of how to buy Bitcoin in Canada, the best way to buy Bitcoin in Canada. And I feel like there's a lot of Bitcoiners in Canada who are still completely unaware of this. And like I said, I did a video when this first came out. I was so excited to get to the post office and buy some Bitcoin that I actually failed a couple times, and it took about a week to complete the video. So it was a bit of a shit show, and I wanted to do a revision of that with some new information, a revised version, and provide some information to Canadian Bitcoiners. So if you're not in Canada, you can probably skip this video. Save you some time. So let's start with the what here and the why. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to buy Bitcoin in Canada with cash. Non-KYC it's called. So non-KYC means they don't know who you are. KYC means know your customer. In this case, if you're paying with cash, they do not know who you are. And why that's important is we all know that Bitcoin itself is very transparent. Anytime you send a Bitcoin transaction, it appears on the Bitcoin blockchain. You can look it up anytime using a resource like mempool.space. You can look at your transaction, what block it was in. All that information is completely transparent. It doesn't say your name, but it shows your wallet address and how much Bitcoin was sent. And anytime, if you've ever purchased Bitcoin, whether it was on ShakePay, Binance, Coinbase, anytime you purchase Bitcoin on one of these exchanges, they know exactly who you are. Because when you signed up for that account, you had to put in your name, you had to put in your phone number, your email address, a picture of yourself. ShakePay even requires a selfie video to prove that that's who it is who's buying this Bitcoin. The joys of living in rural Canada. It's okay, we're going to go with it. I don't know what point I cut off there, but I was on a roll. So the point of that, whatever I was talking about there, the exchanges, is every time if you signed up for an account with your ID, with your name, phone number, email address, they know exactly who's buying that Bitcoin. So any Bitcoin you've ever purchased from any of these exchanges, they can trace it back to you. That's called KYC Bitcoin. They can trace it back to you because you purchased it with your verified identity. And the reason why this is important is that in a place like Canada, there's lots of uncertainty with government. Any day, any given moment, the government could decide that they want to outlaw Bitcoin. They want to shut down the exchanges. Any Bitcoin that's been you purchased can be traced back to you, and maybe they'll seize it. I think that they'll have a very hard time with that. For a lot of, they'll have a very hard time doing that with a lot of people. But for the majority of people, they don't know, the ins and outs and cold storage, all that kind of stuff. And I think that they'll be very easy targets. Because when regulators come after people, they look for the lowest hanging fruit. And in this case, if the Bitcoin is literally tied to your identity, that would be considered low hanging fruit. So that's who they're going to come after if they decide to do that. So with non-KYC Bitcoin, they actually can't trace it back to you. And I believe in the future that non-KYC Bitcoin will be much more valuable than KYC Bitcoin. And it's not that you'll be able to sell it for more or anything like that. I just mean it's more valuable because they actually don't know that you have it. So even if they came to your house and said, you have this Bitcoin, there's really no way for them to prove that if you do it properly. And purchasing non-KYC Bitcoin using a service like Bull Bitcoin, which I'm about to talk about, would be the best way to do that. So even though they can think that you have Bitcoin, they actually can't prove it if you do it this way. So that's the why, that's the benefits of doing this. And the good news for people in Canada is that we have a very reputable company who's allowing for this called Bull Bitcoin. And I'm going to bring up their website right now and show you exactly how to do this. But before we do that, Oh, I lost my thing here when the internet went out. That's okay. Before we do that, I do want to mention one thing. Before you get going, first thing, I'm going to have a referral link for you to sign up for an account. You don't have to use it, obviously, and I hate talking about this kind of stuff. But with Bull Bitcoin, you'll actually get $25 worth of free Bitcoin just for signing up with that link, which is much better than most incentives, and especially with this, where you actually don't have to put in your identity. So what I'm gonna recommend here is that if you're depending on where you've been buying Bitcoin in Canada, ShakePay, Coinbase, Coinberry, BitBuy, anywhere, what I would suggest is I would start using Bull Bitcoin exclusively. And so what I would recommend here is set up 2 different accounts. Set up a KYC account where you're actually going to put in your information, your name, your email, phone number, piece of identification, and use Bull Bitcoin. You can also send like e-transfers, wire transfers. You can use it similar to any other exchange. If you don't have time to go to the post office or you don't have time to get cash, whatever that is, you can still set Bull Bitcoin up as a verified account to buy Bitcoin. So that's the first part. Once you have that set up, I would make a secondary account. And when you're setting up that secondary account, you're just going to use an email address. They're going to ask for an email address and your real name. I'm not going to tell you whether or not to use your real name or not, but I think you can figure out what the proper answer is there. So I would create a brand new, fresh email address. You can use a service like Proton Mail and use that email address specifically for this account. Don't include your name in it. Come up with some username like you'd come up with when Hotmail addresses first came out. So I think mine, I'm not even going to say mine is so embarrassing, but something like that, where they don't know who you are, but you can tie this to your account. So set up 2 accounts, one verified, one non-verified, and you're going to be using your non-verified account, only your email address and your real name to buy Bitcoin with that account with cash. So when you go to the Bull Bitcoin website here, you're going to log in, you're going to click my account to your dashboard, and then you're going to go to fund your account. So right now you can see that I have $0 in here. And as you scroll down here, you can see a couple different payment methods. So the first one, and probably the one that people are most familiar with, is the Interac e-transfer. So this one you could use. You're basically just going to set up Bull Bitcoin as a contact in your online banking, send them an e-transfer, your account gets funded. So when you send it, it should show up in here, your Canadian dollar balance, and then you can use that to buy Bitcoin. The second route, and what we're talking about in this video, with the verified account, you can also use a wire transfer. So if you're buying a large amount of Bitcoin, say 10,000, 20,000, $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, you would use this wire transfer. And from my experience with Bull Bitcoin, I've used several different exchanges and brokerages, and some take up to like 3 or 4 days for the wire to go through. With Bull Bitcoin, it takes a maximum of 4 hours, they say. They're also extremely helpful if you need them. All you do is just click this message button up here and it brings up a chat. And they always have somebody on standby that can help you with the process here if you need. But with this non-verified account, we're actually going to be clicking this one, cash or debit at Canada Post. And so it says the requirements here is that you must have a limited or verified status. And what we're going to be going with here is the limited status, which is just your email and your real name. As it says here, to obtain limited status, you must provide your real name in quotations and a verified email address. So they'll send you a link. You'll verify it with your new email address, your fresh email address, and that's how you get the limited status. And then it walks you through the steps here. So you go to what I would do first before any of these steps is you'll scroll down here and there's a picture of a QR code. This is going to be your QR code It's never going to change. So anytime that you want to fund your account, this is what you're going to be using. So take a screenshot of this first on your phone. Obviously, you're not going to be carrying your laptop to the post office. So take a screenshot of that. Then you're going to go to Canada Post, any location in Canada. You ask the cashier to scan the Load Hub QR code. You don't really even have to say Bitcoin when you're talking to Canada Post. You can just say, I want to load some money onto Load Hub. I'm sure they'll see Bull Bitcoin and figure it out themselves, but you don't have to say anything about Bitcoin. Just say Load Hub. And then you tell the cashier at Canada Post how much money you want to spend. So anywhere between $10 and $1,000. And keep in mind here, if you want to load a significant amount, you could just do 10 transactions of $1,000 each. And the reason why it's $1,000 or less, because the regulations in Canada do not apply to any amounts under $1,000. So that's kind of how they're getting away with this at Bull Bitcoin, is they're keeping it below the threshold of regulation. Genius. And so with that, you can pay with cash or debit card. Obviously, your debit card is going to be traced to you, which is what we're trying to avoid here. So you pay with cash. The cashier prints a receipt and you keep this as proof of payment. You don't have to do anything with the receipt, but just hang on to it. And then once you get back home, the funds will be loaded in here, similar to an e-transfer. They'll show up right here in your account. And the next part is you're ready to buy Bitcoin. So once that's loaded, then you just click buy Bitcoin. You'll type in how much you want to spend here, whatever amount you loaded onto there. It'll show you how much Bitcoin you're getting. And then you get to decide Bitcoin, Lightning, or Liquid. For the most part, I think $200 is the minimum if you're using the Bitcoin network. I would suggest using the Bitcoin network if possible. You could always use the Lightning network if you only have $50 or $100 on here. That's fine, and then you can always move it onto layer one later on. But I would just go with the Bitcoin network. You paste in your Bitcoin address there, and then you click buy Bitcoin. And they batch it, so it'll take a couple hours probably to arrive in your Bitcoin wallet, but it will be there. I've used this plenty of times. It's pretty much the exclusive way that I've been buying Bitcoin. Unless you're from the government, then I have 0 Bitcoin. Hope to get some someday though. So that's the process. And the good news is that anytime you want, you can come on here and you can see the instructions. They're very easy to follow. Once you do it once or twice, I don't think you'll be buying Bitcoin any other way. And keep in mind that there is a small fee on here, $3.50 for amounts up to $500 and $3.95 for any amounts over $500. So consider that if you're going to be buying $100 a week or whatever, I would just batch them together just to save on some fees. Because why wouldn't you want to save on fees? So that is how you do it. Very easy to do. Like I said, I've done it dozens of times now. And it is it's the way to be buying Bitcoin. Anytime that you can get non-KYC Bitcoin, people in other countries like the US, like the UK, they have to buy, you have to jump through 10 hoops to buy non-KYC Bitcoin. It is possible. There's exchanges like RoboSats, HODL HODL, and BISC, I believe. They're basically just peer-to-peer, but you don't need any of that if you're in Canada. This is the easiest way. So easy. And I honestly can't believe that we're allowed to do it in Canada. So before they shut it down, before they change their mind, before almighty Trudeau figures out what's happening here, take advantage of this. And I did want to touch on a few other things here. Of course, they left the screen that I was on. I had 3 tips to share. See if I can remember them. The first one was that with the QR code, if the Canada Post is having any sort of issues with that, make sure that you can always just find a photo editing app. Don't get lost here because this is very easy, but find a photo editing app and just shrink your QR code, because the smaller your QR code, the easier it is for them to scan. And I learned that the hard way. I was standing at the post office for 10 minutes. They were trying to scan my QR code and it wouldn't work. I had to shrink it down a little bit so the scanner would pick it up. So that's the first one. The second one, as I mentioned here, with this QR code, this is going to be your QR code every time you want to buy Bitcoin using this method. So take a screenshot of this, shrink it down, and save it to a folder in your phone so you can always have easy access. You're not going to be standing at the post office scrambling to try to find your QR code. Just take a screenshot, put it in a folder called Bull Bitcoin, and you can always have that easily accessible, ready to go when you need to. So that's 1, 2, and the third one is make sure that you create a brand new wallet. So you're going to set up a brand new email address. You're going to set up a brand new account with Bull Bitcoin, and you're going to set up a brand new wallet. Because if you start sending your KYC Bitcoin into the same address as your non-KYC Bitcoin, that completely defeats the entire purpose of this. So make sure that all your non-KYC Bitcoin is set up in its own brand new wallet. And the last part here, the bonus one, is consider how much you're buying. Consider the impacts of buying $100, $200 at a time, and the UTXOs on top of that. And if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, I did a video yesterday talking about UTXOs, how to manage them and how to prepare for the future. So I'll leave a link below for that as well. So you got a couple links below. The Bull Bitcoin, the UTXO management as just kind of a bonus if you're thinking really far ahead here. And hopefully that'll get you going. So this was a much better version, a much more condensed and efficient version of how to buy Bitcoin. The best way to buy Bitcoin in Canada using Bull Bitcoin. So that's it for this one. I hope you're having a great day whenever you're watching this, wherever you're watching this, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.